the299 News for Monday, January 9th, 2023. I'm Aiden.
And I'm Matt.
I'm Cole. And boys, I have breaking news. This is an insane one. The rioters rioted at the Brazilian capital, including the Congress, the presidential palace, and the Supreme Court. Matt, what do you know about this?
Today, 1,500 far-right supporters detained in Brazil. These rioters were seeking military intervention to overthrow the election, to either put Mr. Bolsonaro into the presidency or oust already inaugurated leftist Luiz Lula. It's very similar to the January 6th attack on the Capitol. And it's not
on the U.S. Capitol.
On the U.S. Capitol, and it's another example of, a far right presence with it in our modern age.
That's insane, bro.
Oh, Mr. Bolsonaro, he said that protests are fair, but attacks are shouldn't. I don't know what to find the words. Should not. Pretty much, he's condemned
Or
them.
Not correct.
Not correct. He's condemned the riots, but he has also stated without evidence that the voting systems were fraud. So when I say it's very similar to what happened January 6th and Trump saying that voting systems were fraud and the selection was stolen from him, it's very similar to that. That kind of arrogance to state that everyone else is wrong but him. He's not but what's interesting is that he hasn't opposed the transition of power, but he's neither conceded defeat. So
it's interesting. I don't know if you guys heard,
but
Putin was advocating for these riots. He wasn't condemning them like many world leaders, and he was. Well, I'm not going to say he was supporting them, but he wasn't saying that they were bad either. He was saying that the people were fighting for a fair election. That it was a and I assume he was referring to the idea of popular sovereignty, where in the U.S. Constitution, popular sovereignty is the idea that if all the majority of people want to get rid of the government, then they should be allowed to. So, I'm guessing that's what Putin was using as a way of an excuse for this, is that if the majority of the Brazilian people don't want him, they want Lula to be the president, then he shouldn't be the president. But obviously, I'm not going to say obviously, but this isn't true because clearly Lula won the election.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which means at least the plurality want him to be the leader of Brazil.
Yeah.
Aiden, you have anything you want to add on to this? So, what do you guys think this means for international relations wise? Do you think this changes the way the United States views Brazil? See that at all? Or major powers?
I feel like it's another example of what I said this before of far right, intervention and presence within the modern day. It's becoming more. I don't know. You could disagree with me if you want, but what I've seen is becoming more prevalent with many far right ideologies and beliefs are kind of coming up in the mainstream. People are they're starting to threaten central governments of different countries. What's different about it is that they're not huge. Far right groups such as neo-Nazis in the United States, they're not huge groups. So even though they throw these threats, but throw these threats at the government, say they're going to undermine over like kickstart a civil war. They don't really have the numbers or the capability to do that. So, and it's like that with White House and the pressure to expel after bills or yeah.
Because we haven't even talked about the fact that Bolsonaro is in the United States.
Yeah,
And that he's in Florida. But I know it was announced today that he was hospitalized in Florida.
Yeah.
Where a Texas representative, Democrat, wanted to extradite Bolsonaro back to Brazil. Do you think the United States should let world leaders that retired world leaders come to the United States? Let's see, like Merkel. Do you think Merkel should be allowed to come to the United States? And she's a retired world leader.
Yeah, I don't see why
I
not.
don't see why not.
So then why can't? So what's the difference between that and Bolsonaro?
Well,
I guess what the argument is by some people.
Well, Merkel was an ally to the United States, and Bolsonaro is, like what I've seen, has kind of little far right tendencies, which
He's
kind of
more of a Trump
which
supporter.
since the January 6th attack in the Capitol, that's kind of like the U.S. is more aware of or cautious of that, so it would make sense that they would reject Bolsonaro and accept Merkel. So I think
another thing that people need to keep an eye out for is that Brazil is a part of BRICS as well. BRICS is an economic alliance. It stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And it's an economic alliance between those 5 countries to support one another economically. The thing is, this is not a military alliance. So
yeah.
India, I'm pretty sure a good chunk of India's weapon supplies comes from BRICS, specifically Russia. So, yeah. So Brazil is a part of that group. Those Chads, if you know what I mean. It's like the European Union of everybody else. Instead, it's only 5 countries instead of 20.
Yeah.
So, any last thoughts on Brazil before we move on?
No.